I'm Lauren O'Keefe, founder of the Missing Persons Advocacy Network. When Australian Story first met the Barwick family, they had just discovered the fate of their 17-year-old daughter Ursula, who went missing more than 30 years ago. At a long overdue coronial inquest last month, Ursula's case laid bare major problems with missing persons investigations by New South Wales Police. But there's also optimism that these uncomfortable truths could help the thousands of other families still waiting for an answer.
When Ursula was leaving, there was no bitterness. She was in a joyful mood. It was just a big adventure, and she wanted to have that adventure like so many other country kids did.
She told us that she was going to Sydney, and we said okay. And she was to ring us when she got there to give us the address, but that phone call never came.
From the day that she got on that train, there was just no record of Ursula Barwick. We just didn't know where she was.
It eats at you all the time because you can't get away from it. You wake up in the middle of the night and you think, what the hell's happened?
It's a grief that you can't explain. Is she dead or is she alive? Is she coming home? Is she not?
This could have been such an easy case to solve, and it could have saved a lot of heartache.
It was sitting right there in front of them. It was just there in front of them, and they just missed it.
A police officer has unleashed a stinging criticism aimed at the failed investigation of a missing teenager more than 30 years ago. 17-year-old Ursula Barwick vanished shortly after moving to Sydney.
Ursula went missing in 1987. Through this inquest, after 34 long years, the police are finally being held accountable for the catastrophic failures that Ursula's case has highlighted.
Today, the coroner's court heard there was no record of any initial investigation. Sergeant Amy Scott telling the court that was unusual and inexcusable.
We knew that there was a lack of work done, but what I heard at the inquest was unbelievable. It was far worse than what I was expecting to hear.
Time and time again, people weren't doing their job. It wasn't just 1 or 2 years, it was over 20 years of incompetence through multiple sets of people.
The coroner will decide whether changes since made to police and DNA procedures are adequate.
I think families of long-term missing Australians have cautious optimism that maybe things are improving now, but this inaction, this carelessness has led to 3 decades of absolute, unnecessary, preventable torment for the family.
Hey, Deb. Good. Hi, Em. Sean. Hi, nice to see you.
I met Ursula in our first year of high school in Corindai. It's a small town in the northwest of New South Wales. In 2018, we had our 30th school reunion, but our friend Ursula Barwick wasn't there.
Yeah, so I remember Ursula used to flutter around. She used to sit underneath there sometimes, and then she'd be over here.
I think the thought that was running through all of our heads was, had she been taken by Ivan Milat? Maybe she's been murdered. We had no idea. There was just hope that she was still out there.
1, 2, 3.
In all of our minds, Ursula's still 17. Ursula really loved that outdoors life. She was always the first one to do something, and she was always brave and confident.
Her mother, Cherie, and I parted when Ursula was quite young. And then Elizabeth and I married. We got to see quite a bit of her, until we moved to the Central Coast.
We would have her for school holidays, and then Andrew came along in 1980 and she was the first person we rang. And then along came Kate. The kids adored her and she adored the kids.
When she was with us, she ruled our world. Like, I looked up to her so much. And when she was there, it was just, I loved it. I loved having a big sister because it was always fun.
As Ursula became a teenager, I did notice some changes in her.
She didn't know where she fitted, and I think as part of living in a small country town, she was probably feeling stifled and wanting to go out and see the world.
Towards the middle of year 11, her risk-taking became more extreme. Excessive drinking, passing out at parties, not knowing what was going on around her.
Some small drugs, being a little bit promiscuous. It started a rumour mill which started off through the school but then went through the wider community, and I think Ursula became quite scared, embarrassed, which made her act out even more.
Cherie called me one night. She said, "Could you take Ursula for a while? Because I just can't handle it." And I said, "Of course." So down she came.
The last day that we saw Ursula was the spring of 1987. She was in year 11 and didn't want to go any further.
She basically said, "Well, I'm 17, I can leave home, I can do what I like." And she said, "I found a job in Sydney." As parents, we accepted the fact that we had to let her go.
We were going down on the Saturday and it gave her 2 days to get organised and call us.
She said, "I'll contact you as soon as I'm where I am." That was the last thing she ever said to us.
Each day went by and it got to be the 2 weeks, and we thought, we didn't think she would have left it that long to have made contact.
I was becoming very anxious. So I went to Sydney, where the police headquarters were, and reported her as a full missing person with photographs. There was no follow-up whatsoever from the police. Nobody was interviewed whatsoever, no friends, family or acquaintances.
I actually felt that there was a lack of interest from the police, that she was just another runaway and that she'd come home. I guess we believed that there was nothing that you could do. You just had to wait at home and hope they turned up. It was awful, awful.
Before she was leaving, Ursula wrote a letter to me and a letter to our small group of friends. And she says, "I'm pretty good, thanks. I'm having fun down on the coast. I'm down visiting my dad. How's school?"
There was no indication at all that she wanted to just disappear.
And she misses us all. That's 3 or 4 times through here. She said, "I miss you, can't wait to see you." On her little cartoon, "See you soon." For a 17-year-old girl to run away, it always has surprised me that nobody came and spoke to us about what was going on in her life, what she was thinking, what she might have told any of us.
With no results from the police at all, we started to look ourselves. Wherever we went, we never stopped looking.
Dad used to go down to Sydney a fair bit. I didn't realise what he was doing because obviously I was young. I didn't realise that he was going down to look.
In the back of my mind at that stage, there was the chance that she had got involved with something that was sinister and couldn't get out. When you go looking in those places, you soon realise what sort of deviant people are around. And it was pretty sad to see it all firsthand.
It was like a slow burn. Christmas comes and she doesn't come home. You know, then birthdays come round and she doesn't get in touch.
As years went by, we would often get a phone call to say that somebody had taken up her case, but then nothing would happen. It would just be a phone call.
Ursula's mother, Cherie, passed away in 2004. And that was 17 years after Ursula disappeared and just before she passed. I said to her, I'm sure she's gone. And she said, I finally agree with you. She said, I'm on the way to meet her. That really kicked me.
In 2008, we had our 20th school reunion. We're all sitting there talking about Ursula. Surely somebody out there's got to know something about her, where she is. Facebook was so new, and someone suggested that I put together a Facebook page, which I did. Andrew, who's Ursula's brother, he joined the Facebook page in 2010.
I'd always wanted to be a policeman, and always used to think, oh, once I'm there, I can then maybe do something. I can look for her. I made some inquiries with some people at the Missing Persons Unit. That's pretty much the first thing I did because it's the first thing I ever thought I could do.
He was at the same station as the Senior Constable Adam Marsh, and Adam was seconded to Missing Persons Unit, and Andrew actually said that his sister Ursula was missing.
He goes, yeah, mate, if I can, I'll have a look. Someone having a poke around is always handy.
New forensic imaging technology is giving families of missing persons fresh hope of finding their loved ones.
So in 2010, there was a campaign with the Australian Federal Police and the Missing Persons Unit. And that was to use the age progression technology, and I think it was the first time that had been used.
We really felt this was our last chance of maybe if she was alive, that, you know, surely somebody would see her.
Federal Police have launched the first poster using sophisticated age-enhanced photos of long...
I grew up thinking, oh, it was just her, and then you start to realise that, wow, there is so many people that just go missing. I had friends calling me just saying, that's your sister, she's on the bus stop.
When I saw Ursula on the television, it concerned me that her hair colour was wrong, her eye colour was wrong, and the date she went missing was wrong. So I made phone call after phone call.
It's at least 3 to 4 weeks incorrect. This is a really sloppy profile. And really, someone should do something about that, because how are we going to find her with information like this?
As the time went by, nothing came of it, so it was basically then, okay, and we're back to square one.
In 2014, there's a statewide initiative to follow up on stalled long-term missing person cases. At King's Cross, a detective by the name of Kurt Haywood ends up with Ursula Barwick's missing persons file.
He said, we thought this may have been a homicide. But he said, I think there's more in this story than what you and I can even envisage. Something's gone wrong somewhere.
We were both interviewed. We hadn't been officially interviewed before by anybody. He got Sergeant Amy Scott on board as well, and he seemed to be doing more than anyone ever had.
And they went all over Ursula's background. They went back to Crindai and to the high school and gathered little snippets of information.
I think during my interview, Amy was very open about the fact that not much had ever been done, and she worked so hard. Every little name that I gave her that had a vague connection to Ursula's case, she followed up.
Today, police released a reenactment of Ursula Barwick, who's been missing for 28 years.
In 2015, we had the Missing Persons Week, and she was the face of that, and a lot of publicity went around with her face on it.
She told her family that she just won a new job, and she would ring her family with her new address so they could bring the remainder of her belongings down to her. The Barwicks are still waiting for that phone call.
Ursula, if you're out there anywhere, please contact us. Just to know that you're okay, your life's okay, and the rest of it doesn't matter. About 6 months later, in May 2016, I got a call late in the afternoon from Kurt. He said, I've got a set of photographs I want you to look at. You know, he said, it's going to be very hard on you, but I want you to look at every one of them. I think that this may be the end of your case.
They showed us a report of a young girl who had died in an accident in 1987, and she went under the name of Jessica or Jessie, and we, reading it, were wondering what did this have to do with us.
I thought, oh my God, Father, this is a bit horrific. But then I looked closer. Her eyes and her teeth was Ursula.
Her hair was it, her body was, it was like, I can't see her face, but that's her.
I got up. I went and sat on the end of the bed. I couldn't handle it. It's been so long, so hard. And there it was, sitting in front of me.
It was only then that we found out how much investigation went into finding these photos and the background of how it all came about.
The reason why the detectives at King's Cross had these photographs was because of Senior Constable Adam Marsh. Adam was the former work colleague of Ursula's brother, Andrew Barwick. We now know that it was 5 years earlier at the Missing Persons Unit that Adam Marsh was reviewing a file involving a young girl who died in a car crash. He started to notice striking similarities between that file and the case of Ursula Barwick. He was particularly struck by the photographs. 5 months after the crash, a friend identified this victim in the morgue as Jessica Pearce, but he couldn't find any trace of this mystery friend. While Adam Marsh had his suspicions that this victim could be Ursula Barwick, he couldn't prove it. Fast forward to 2015, and Adam Marsh saw something that absolutely convinced him Ursula Barwick was in fact Jessica Pearce.
Well, it is the start of National Missing Persons Week, and police...
Ursula Barwick, who has been... When we had the Missing Persons Week, back in 2015, Adam saw a different photo of Ursula, a different one to the one he had been looking at in 2010, 2011, and he said he had chills down his spine because he thought it is her.
And that tiny little thing went to Kurt and Amy, and then all of a sudden it just took off.
The police still had to go about proving 100% that it was her, and so they began by finding the other 3 guys in the car.
Kurt contacted me just asking me if I remembered, mostly if I remembered what happened in the accident, and do I remember Jess? And of course I did. I first met Jess well in King's Cross. Mark and Rob, myself, Jess, a few other girls, a few other guys, we all hung around up the cross.
I met Jess in a pool hall, which just used to be across the road in the orange doorway. We used to come up here and play pool and just muck around, listen to music.
Jess just come out of the blue, and she was a real spark. Very innocent compared to us. Like, we were just a bit dead set bunch of mugs.
I'd never heard of the name Ursula before. I only knew her as Jess, and her boyfriend, I think it was Mark. We knew she wasn't from around here, just the way she was dressed. Denim jacket, denim jeans, white shirt.
Jess or Ursula had been in King's Cross for about 3 weeks when Hans, as he told police, decided to steal a car.
And we went driving around. They said they'd stolen the car and that they were going to Melbourne, and did we want to come? And I knew at the time my dad would kill me if I left.
Jess decided to come with us because Mark was going, and she weren't letting him go nowhere without her. I was driving initially. We pulled up down around Yass, I suppose, and that's when Robert took over. I straight out said to him, you do not use cruise control. And I've gone off and done my own thing, gone to sleep, etc. Jess and Mark, they have laid down on the back seat cuddling, you know, and gone to sleep. That's exactly what he did. Set the cruise control at 120 kilometres an hour. And we ended up going head-on with a truck at that speed.
It was 4 teenagers going on a joyride, and we don't feel any animosity towards them. It could have been anyone driving that car. It was just an accident.
And the sad part about it was it happened 3 weeks after she disappeared. She wasn't a prostitute and she wasn't taking drugs. She was just there being part of the gang.
I guess a car accident was much better than what we all thought. Because you do start to think the worst. But then, as much as that was a relief, the frustration started kicking in as to, well, why wasn't there any answers? Or how did this go so wrong for so many years?
Police investigating that crash were only looking for a woman named Jessica. Around the same time, we've got Ursula's family who report her missing. It seems like the obvious place to look would be the morgue, but police don't check against bodies that have turned up over the past few months.
To find anybody.
When we found out that Ursula had laid in the morgue in Glebe, it was 15 months, and nothing or nobody went to look at it or to even explain or do anything like that. We were bitterly disappointed. Right, just about ready.
Once the detectives wrapped up their investigation, we knew it had to go to the coroner's court to have Jessica officially declared as Ursula Diane Barwick. It was very hard, but Kurt and Amy were our rock. They were there with us all the time.
How are you feeling?
Oh, it's a bit surreal, Kurt.
Yeah.
I am so grateful that somebody cared enough to help us. And you couldn't get two better people.
In 2018, we had the inquest and we were given the answer that, yes, it was Ursula that was killed in the car accident. And the relief on Dad was just, you could just see that his life had changed because he finally got that answer. And now we've had to wait another 2 years to get the second inquest. The findings of why and how did everything go so wrong, why did it take so long to get those answers.
Then COVID hit and it kept getting delayed, and Pete was just so wanting it all to be done, all to be finished, finalised, and still apprehensive about what would come out of it.
And unfortunately, Dad passed away unexpectedly in October last year.
And he just never got to know the answers to the questions that he kept asking as to why, and the delays just kept happening, and just the timing just was not for him.
She died of complete heartache because she never got her answers. And now Dad's passed away as well, and Mum had to go through this whole inquest by herself.
Today, her stepmother, half-brother and auntie all listened in court as a coroner opened a new inquest into her disappearance and death. Today, Sergeant Amy Scott, who took over the investigation in 2014, expressed her shock that it was never properly investigated and no formal interviews were conducted.
We now know through the evidence that came through from the inquest that it appears that there was no investigation into her disappearance from day one.
When we heard from Senior Sergeant Amy Scott that there'd been 12 years where nothing had been done, we were all extremely surprised and quite shocked. We did believe that when we did say that she was missing, that they would investigate it. We didn't realise that it didn't go anywhere, that just went into a void.
We learnt at the inquest too in 1994 they were putting paper files into computer files, and for some unknown reason Ursula was marked as found.
Ursula was mistakenly marked as located when New South Wales Police moved records to an online database.
In the case of Ursula, her case was put on the system as missing and located at the same time when in fact she hadn't been located, so it was entered incorrectly. It's 5 years of no investigation. No one was looking for her because they didn't know she was missing.
Before Kurt and Amy took on the case, the detective in charge of Ursula's case from 2002 to 2014 did very little.
He's not even getting a statement from Cherie, Ursula's mother, knowing full well that she was close to the end of her life. He didn't source a photograph for Ursula's file because the original photograph had gone missing, and was not able to offer any explanation as to why that was.
Listening to his reasons that he had extra work or things were more important, that was really hard to hear, that Ursula was not important. 12 years, that's a long time not to look at it.
In 2010, Senior Constable Adam Marsh was in the missing persons unit and knew that Ursula was missing. At the inquest, Adam Marsh said that he had felt he made a connection, but he felt he would be ridiculed or that he would be told he was wasting the detective in charge's time because he didn't have enough evidence.
For him not feeling comfortable in the workplace culture to share his thoughts about the connection is just devastating, because that kind of delay, another 5 years, had an enormous impact on the family.
I'm a little bit overwhelmed by the whole process, by everything that's coming to light.
She wasn't a priority, which if Pete was here, he would just be hitting the roof, yeah, he would just be, really, really upset.
One of the big issues that came out of the inquest is the missing persons system is so broken and so understaffed that the job cannot be done properly.
These databases are just riddled with errors, and that obviously is not conducive to matches being made between long-term missing Australians and unidentified remains.
Ursula is buried at the Emu Plain Cemetery. They don't know whereabouts in that cemetery because there were no records and there is no headstone.
Ursula's case really prompted a full reform of the Missing Persons Unit, and they've rebranded it as the Missing Persons Registry, and they've structurally, made a lot of changes which are positive.
It's really brought it out into the open about what the New South Wales Police or any police force is doing and making them so much more accountable because everybody's watching. They are really showing that they are trying to fix all these broken systems.
To clear this backlog of hundreds of unidentified remains, New South Wales Police have launched their own initiatives around DNA collection, and there's also a national program that is doing the same on a national scale. We just hope that all of the police jurisdictions collaborate and get involved so that they can give families the answers that they deserve.